The Mahabharata is not just an ancient epic. It is a mirror of human nature. It is a story of ambition, loyalty, betrayal, sacrifice, and redemption. Themes that remain just as relevant today as they were thousands of years ago. Whether it's Arjuna's crisis of purpose, Duryodhana's unchecked ambition, or Karna's struggle with loyalty, these stories are not distant legends. They are reflections of everyday struggles. Every individual, at some point, faces dilemmas of morality versus practicality, duty versus personal desire, and righteousness versus survival. At its core, the Mahabharata explores the conflict between dharma and karma, between free will and fate. It forces us to ask, do we control our destiny, or are we just playing out a script written by past actions? Arjuna, the greatest warrior, stands frozen on the battlefield, torn between his duty as a warrior and his love for family. This is the struggle of modern times. How often do people feel trapped between their responsibilities and personal emotions? The Bhagavad Gita, spoken by Krishna, provides the wisdom to navigate these conflicts with clarity and purpose. And then, there's the shared human experience, the universal emotions that drive people to act in ways they later regret. Greed, jealousy, revenge, ego. These forces drive both kings and commoners to their downfall. Duryodhana's jealousy of the Pandavas mirrors the way people today compare themselves to others on social media, breeding resentment instead of self-improvement. Bhishma's blind loyalty to the throne, despite knowing it was unjust, reflects the countless times people choose comfort over standing up for what's right. The past is not just history. It is a roadmap of mistakes that continue to repeat. But history doesn't just repeat itself. It teaches those who are willing to learn. The Mahabharata serves as a guide to making better choices, understanding that righteousness is not always easy, but it is always necessary. Whether it's a businessman struggling with ethical decisions, a leader facing a moral crisis, or an individual torn between ambition and relationships, the lessons of this epic transcend time. The characters may be kings and warriors, but their battles are the same battles being fought in homes, workplaces, and societies today. And if the Mahabharata is a reflection of human nature, then its characters are cautionary tales and inspirations alike. Some, like Yudhishthira and Arjuna, strive for righteousness, while others, like Karna and Duryodhana, succumb to their flaws. But what happens when ego and ambition blind one to reality? That's where Karna's tragic story begins, a man torn between loyalty, justice, and personal pain. Chapter 1. The consequences of ego, greed, and misplaced loyalty. The Mahabharata is filled with powerful warriors and brilliant minds. Yet many of them fall not because they lack strength, but because they are slaves to their own ego, greed, or misguided loyalty. Karna, Duryodhana, and even Bhishma serve as examples of how uncontrolled ambition, blind attachments, and pride can lead even the greatest men to inevitable downfall. These aren't just ancient lessons. They are warnings for anyone navigating the complexities of power, relationships, and morality today. Take Karna, for example, one of the most tragic figures in the Mahabharata. He was a warrior of unparalleled skill, yet he was consumed by his need to prove himself. His misplaced loyalty to Duryodhana led him to fight against righteousness, even when deep inside he knew he was on the wrong side. How often do people today let pride and past wounds dictate their decisions, leading them to defend the wrong people or make choices that ultimately harm them? Karna's story is a lesson that loyalty should never come at the cost of one's own dharma. Then there's Duryodhana, a man whose greed and entitlement blinded him to reason. He could have chosen peace, he could have shared power, but his inability to accept others' success led him to self-destruction. His envy of the Pandavas mirrors the way people today obsess over others' achievements, comparing instead of focusing on their own growth. Instead of working on himself, he spent his life trying to destroy those he envied. The result? He lost everything. This is the danger of greed and unchecked ambition. When a person's desire for power becomes more important than wisdom and self-awareness, they are bound to fail. And what about ego? Bhishma, a man of immense wisdom, was still trapped by his own rigid sense of duty. His unwavering loyalty to the throne made him silent when he should have spoken, passive when he should have acted. How often do people stay in toxic environments, dysfunctional relationships, or corrupt systems simply because of a sense of blind duty? The lesson here is clear. Loyalty should be to Dharma, not to people or institutions that have lost their righteousness. So what can we learn from these fallen warriors? That power without wisdom is a curse, and loyalty without discernment is a trap. The Mahabharata doesn't just tell us about men who fell. It warns us of the same mistakes we make today. And this leads to a deeper question. When does duty become a burden? When does responsibility conflict with morality? Bhishma and Yudhishthira both faced this dilemma, proving that blind duty can sometimes be as dangerous as blind ambition. Chapter 2. The complexity of duty, when allegiance conflicts with righteousness. One of the most profound dilemmas in the Mahabharata is the tension between duty and righteousness. What happens when doing what is right means going against what is expected, when loyalty clashes with morality? This is not just an ancient question. It is a reality people face every day, whether in their careers, relationships, or personal choices. The stories of Bhishma and Yudhishthira highlight how blind adherence to duty, without wisdom, can lead to unnecessary suffering. Take Bhishma, the great warrior who had all the knowledge of Dharma, yet remained bound by his vow to serve the throne of Hastinapura, no matter who sat on it. His loyalty was legendary, but was it wise? He watched Duryodhana's arrogance, Draupadi's humiliation, and the kingdom's decline, yet he did nothing. He believed his duty was to obey, not to question. But Krishna teaches in the Bhagavad Gita that true Dharma is not about blind obedience, but about upholding righteousness. How often do people today stay silent in the face of injustice because they feel bound by obligations, social expectations, or fear consequences? Then there's Yudhishthira, the king who was known for his adherence to truth and justice. Yet even he struggled with rigid morality versus practical wisdom. When he was invited to the infamous dice game, he felt bound by royal duty to accept. His attachment to rules, even when they were manipulated against him, led to the Pandavas' downfall and Draupadi's humiliation. His story teaches that justice is not just about following rules. It's about understanding when those rules are being used as a weapon. This is a lesson for today. People often mistake compliance for righteousness, failing to see when systems, rules, or traditions are being used to uphold corruption. The Bhagavad Gita presents a radical perspective. Dharma is not just about duty. It is about wisdom and action. Krishna tells Arjuna that there are moments when one must stand against tradition, against expectation, and even against their own attachments if it means upholding truth. True Dharma demands intellect, courage, and discernment. How many times do people stay in jobs, relationships, or commitments that no longer align with their truth, simply because they feel duty-bound? The lesson is clear. Duty must always serve righteousness, not the other way around. And yet, Dharma is not just about standing up for righteousness. It is also about having the strength to fight for justice, even when the battle is unfair. Some, like Bhishma and Yudhishthira, struggled with when to act. Others, like Bhima and Draupadi, refused to accept injustice, proving that sometimes strength is the greatest weapon of Dharma. Chapter 3. The power of strength, determination, and justice. Strength alone does not make a person righteous, but without strength, righteousness is often powerless. The Mahabharata makes one thing clear: justice does not come to those who wait for it. It comes to those who fight for it. Characters like Bhima and Draupadi embody the raw determination required to stand against injustice, showing that strength, when guided by wisdom, becomes a force for righteousness. Bhima, the Pandava known for his brute strength, wasn't just a warrior. He was a protector of justice. While his brothers debated moral dilemmas, Bhima acted. When Draupadi was humiliated in the royal court, he vowed to avenge her, to break Duryodhana's thighs and crush Dushasana's chest. Was he driven by anger? Yes. But was his anger misplaced? No. Krishna himself emphasizes that when power is used to uphold dharma, it is not violence, it is justice. In today's world, where injustice often goes unchecked, how often do people stay silent, choosing peace over truth, avoiding conflict instead of standing for what is right? Then there is Draupadi, a woman who defied the expectations of her time. She was humiliated, stripped of her dignity, and yet she refused to accept her fate. She did not beg for mercy, she demanded justice. Her resilience is a lesson that dharma does not mean passive acceptance. It means having the will to challenge oppression. How many people today tolerate unfair treatment, remain in toxic situations, or silence their voices in the name of keeping peace? Draupadi's fire is a reminder that sometimes resistance is the highest form of righteousness. Justice is not always given, it must be taken. Krishna tells Arjuna that violence in the defense of righteousness is not sin, but duty. The battle of Kurukshetra wasn't about personal revenge. It was about restoring balance, about standing against greed, corruption, and unchecked ambition. Bhima, Draupadi, and Krishna himself teach that those who seek justice must be willing to fight for it, even when the battle is painful, even when the odds are stacked against them. But justice is not just about external battles. It is also about inner strength, resilience, and the ability to stay true to one's path despite obstacles. True warriors are not only those who wield weapons. They are those who refuse to let the world break them. And this is where self-reflection, humility, and the constant pursuit of wisdom become essential. Because without wisdom, even the strongest can lose their way. Chapter 4. The role of self-reflection, humility, and continuous learning. Strength and determination can lead to victory, but without self-awareness and humility, even the strongest warriors fall. The Mahabharata is filled with powerful individuals, yet those who fail to reflect on their actions, learn from their mistakes, and practice humility often met tragic ends. Arjuna, Eklavya, and even Drona show us that self-realization is not just about skill or intelligence. It is about constantly evolving, questioning, and understanding oneself at a deeper level. Take Arjuna, for example. He was the greatest archer of his time, yet when faced with the reality of war, he doubted himself, his purpose, and his dharma. Instead of blindly charging in a battle, he paused. He questioned. He sought guidance from Krishna, who then revealed the Bhagavad Gita, the ultimate scripture on self-mastery and wisdom. This moment teaches that even the strongest minds need guidance, and even the most skilled individuals must pause to reflect on their purpose. How often do people rush into decisions without true self-awareness, acting on impulse rather than wisdom? Contrast this with Eklavya, a warrior of immense talent but blinded by his own ego. He sought knowledge, but not with humility. When rejected by Drona, he trained himself in secrecy and became a master archer. But his obsession with proving himself led to resentment, not growth. In the end, his knowledge was tainted by pride, and he paid the price for his lack of humility. The lesson? Skill alone is not enough. Without wisdom and a pure heart, even the most gifted individuals can destroy themselves. Even Drona, the great guru, fell victim to his own contradictions. He was a master of warfare and strategy, yet he was unable to detach from personal biases, favoring Arjuna over Karna and manipulating events to secure his legacy. His downfall teaches a crucial lesson. Learning never stops, and the moment a person believes they know everything, they stop growing. Krishna reminds us that true wisdom comes from constant reflection, humility, and the willingness to question one's own actions. At its core, The Mahabharata reminds us that no one is beyond learning. No one is beyond self-improvement. Those who are wise seek mentors, question their own intentions, and embrace change, while those who are trapped by ego and attachment fall into self-destruction. But how do we apply this wisdom in our modern world? How do we balance ambition with ethics, knowledge with humility, and power with purpose? That's where the final lesson of the Mahabharata comes in. How to apply these timeless principles to everyday life. Chapter 5. Lessons for Modern Life. Applying the wisdom of the Mahabharata. The Mahabharata is not just an ancient epic. It is a blueprint for navigating the complexities of modern life. Its lessons on ego, ambition, loyalty, resilience, and morality apply to leaders, professionals, parents, and individuals facing difficult choices. The same ethical dilemmas, power struggles, and moral conflicts that shaped the Kurukshetra war still exist today. Only the battlefield has changed. Those who fail to learn from history are doomed to repeat its mistakes, but those who understand its wisdom can gain clarity, purpose, and self-mastery. Consider the battle between righteousness and practicality. Many people today face situations where doing what is right comes at a cost, whether in business, relationships, or personal growth. Yudhishthira's mistake was following Dharma without wisdom, showing that blind adherence to rules can be as dangerous as breaking them. Krishna teaches that true Dharma is about balance, acting ethically while adapting to reality. In a world where corruption and shortcuts seem to bring faster success, staying true to one's values while being adaptable is the real challenge. Then there is the lesson of ego and self-awareness. Karna's downfall was not due to a lack of talent, but because his pride and resentment blinded him to wisdom. How many people today cling to past rejections, wasting energy on proving themselves instead of growing? The Bhagavad Gita reminds us that self-mastery is about letting go of attachments, whether to success, failure, or validation from others. People who move forward with detachment, humility, and focus ultimately rise above those trapped in cycles of ego and comparison. And what about resilience and justice? Draupadi's story teaches that oppression should never be tolerated, and that those who suffer must not remain silent. Her strength in demanding justice, even when the world was against her, is a lesson in courage and perseverance. In today's world, standing up for what is right, whether in workplaces, families, or society, is difficult. But change only happens when individuals refuse to accept injustice and take action. The Mahabharata proves that real warriors are not those who avoid conflict, but those who fight for the right cause with intelligence and strength. Ultimately, the Mahabharata is a guide on how to live with purpose, resilience, and wisdom in a world full of challenges. Its stories teach that life is a constant battle between attachment and detachment, fear and faith, ambition and dharma. The question is, will you live like Karna, trapped by the past, or like Krishna, who moves with clarity and detachment? Will you hesitate like Arjuna, or rise like Draupadi? The answers are already in the Mahabharata, but it is up to each person to apply them. Conclusion: which path will you choose? Now that you've seen the 9 lessons from 9 legends of the Mahabharata, the real question is, which lesson speaks to you the most? Are you struggling with ego like Karna? Are you stuck between duty and morality like Bhishma? Or are you learning to master yourself like Krishna? The truth is, these characters are not just part of an ancient epic. They represent aspects of all of us. Their victories, mistakes, and dilemmas are the same ones we face in our own lives. So what will you do with this wisdom? Will you keep repeating the mistakes of the past? Or will you learn and evolve? Will you act with self-awareness? Or let ambition, loyalty, or self-doubt control your decisions? The Mahabharata is not just a story. It's a warning, a guide, and an opportunity to rise above the patterns that keep people trapped. The choice is always yours. Now, I want to hear from you. Which lesson from this video hit you the hardest? Which Mahabharata character do you relate to the most? Drop a comment below, I read everyone. Your insights might even help someone else on their journey. Let's build a community that learns and grows together. And if you want to keep exploring the deepest lessons from history, spirituality, and self-mastery, subscribe and turn on notifications. Because the wisdom of the Mahabharata is endless. And trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming next.